Hey, welcome to The Explainer. So, we've all heard the story, right? AI is coming for our jobs, the robots are rising, and we're all just waiting for the pink slip. But what if that's only half the story? What if it's not the whole picture? Today, we're going to dive into some really interesting evidence that suggests AI isn't just a job killer, it's actually creating a whole new workforce with some wild new jobs you've probably never even heard of. I mean, you've probably seen this mock job ad floating around, and it's funny, right? It's hilarious because it taps right into that collective anxiety we all have, the fear that AI is going to go rogue. It's kind of like gallows humor for the age of automation. But seriously, beyond the jokes, there's a much more fascinating and honestly more complex reality taking shape. So that really brings us to our central question for this whole explainer. Is this job apocalypse a sure thing? Is it a done deal? Or is something else entirely happening? Is the rise of these AI agents actually creating brand new careers that, get this, put a premium on skills that are uniquely human? Well, the answer might actually surprise you. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll tackle that big question head on: job killer or job creator? Then, to really get to the bottom of it, we're going to follow the entire life cycle of an AI agent in a company. We'll start at the very beginning, with its birth and the people who train it. Then we'll look at its deployment out in the real world with its human guides. After that, we'll meet the rules setters who manage all the risks. And finally, we'll look at the new C-suite role that has to orchestrate this entire thing. So let's start at the beginning. The birth of an agent. Every single AI has to learn, right? It's not born smart. And that process, that training, it starts with human teachers. This phase is basically ground zero for a whole new class of highly skilled professionals that we're calling the trainers. Now, when you hear the term data annotator, your mind probably goes to, low-paid gig workers endlessly clicking on pictures of traffic lights or cats. You can just forget that image entirely. The data annotator of today is a subject matter expert. We're talking about lawyers, doctors, financial analysts who are feeding these AIs sophisticated, nuanced information that they could never, ever learn on their own. And these roles, they're incredibly valuable. I mean, check this out. According to a startup called Merker that helps companies hire these experts, the average wage is $90 an hour. 90 bucks. Why? Well, it's simple. The quality of a really sophisticated AI depends completely on the quality of the expert human knowledge it's trained on. Garbage in, garbage out, right? So the takeaway here is really crucial. We have moved way beyond just tagging images. To build a reliable AI for a complex industry, you need deep, deep domain expertise. And that has completely transformed data annotation from this kind of monotonous task into a really high-value profession. Okay, next up, deployment and human guides. So an AI model is trained. That's great, but it's not really useful just sitting on a server somewhere. To take it out into the wild, a business needs a totally new kind of guide, someone who can help it navigate the messy, unpredictable reality of the real world. And this is where the forward deployed engineer, or FDE, comes in. Now, this is not your typical programmer hiding in a cubicle. An FDE is this unique blend. They're part developer, part consultant, and yeah, even part salesperson. They literally go on site with a client to customize the AI tools and, most importantly, make sure they actually work for that specific company. This quote just perfectly illustrates the whole spirit of the job. It's from a former FDE at the software giant Palantir, and it just paints this picture of real daring do. It's about being on the front lines, solving problems in real time, and just doing whatever it takes to make the technology succeed in a really complex human environment. And believe me, this role is absolutely exploding. Gary Tan, who's the head of the big startup accelerator Y Combinator, he recently pointed out that job postings for FDEs within their portfolio companies jumped from just 4 last year to 63 this year. That is a massive signal of huge demand for these human integration specialists. Now, what's so interesting here is how this trend is changing even traditional software engineering jobs. Think about a Waymo self-driving car. If it gets stuck or has a problem, you don't just need a tech expert on the other end of the line. You need a remote troubleshooter who can calmly talk a totally freaked out passenger through the situation. That guy in the sky needs empathy, a good bedside manner, not just top-tier coding skills. And this quote from Himanshu Palsule just nails it. It perfectly captures the shift. As AI gets better and better at writing the actual code, the real premium for us humans moves to our personality, our ability to communicate, to empathize, to navigate these complex social situations. That's our new value proposition. So, our AI agent is trained, it's deployed. But now we got to make sure it behaves itself, right? And this brings us to stage 3, governance and risk. These are the rule setters. These are the new roles responsible for setting the rules of the road for AI inside a company. You can think of these specialists as the guardians of responsible AI. It's their job to create all the safeguards and the policies that prevent AI agents from, say, leaking sensitive data, or crashing critical operations, or introducing all sorts of unforeseen risks to the business. They're the ones who build the guardrails. And here is a pretty stunning finding from the AI Workforce Consortium. They looked at 50 different IT jobs. And guess what the fastest growing role was? It wasn't AI programmer. No, it was the AI risk and governance specialist. And that just goes to show that companies are realizing that managing AI responsibly is just as important, if not more critical, than just building it in the first place. All right, finally, let's go all the way to the top of the pyramid for our last section, the new C-suite role. Because with all these new systems and all these new human jobs, you need a new kind of leader to act as the orchestrator for the whole thing. And that brings us to the Chief AI Officer, or CAIO. This is a brand new and increasingly vital role in the C-suite. A really great CAIO has to be what they call a triple threat. They need deep technical expertise, they need intimate knowledge of their specific industry, and they need the change management skills to basically overhaul an entire company. Let me tell you, it is absolutely not a job for the faint of heart. And if you want to understand just how challenging this job is, just think about this number, 11. According to IBM, that is the number of different generative AI models the typical large company is already using. The CIO has to somehow orchestrate all of those tools, all of the new roles, and all of the risks into one single coherent and effective strategy. It's a huge job. So it turns out the story of AI in work is, well, it's less about a robot apocalypse and a lot more about a new kind of partnership between humans and machines. From that expert trainer to the on-the-ground engineer to the strategic leader at the top, the most valuable skills are actually becoming the most human ones. Which really just leaves us with one final question for you to think about. If your personality is your premium, how will you cultivate yours?